Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, as a student, Paul Stewart encountered significant challenges and costs transporting his personal belongings between Northern Ireland and Scotland. It was such a negative experience that Paul decided to create a solution, one which would ultimately become a successful global door-to-door luggage shipping company. Paul joins us now to discuss the success of My Baggage and how it has carved out a lucrative niche in the shipping market. Paul, the My Baggage story dates back to 2009, but tell us about developing the idea for the business.
Thanks very much for having me. That's right. So My Baggage is a door-to-door luggage shipping company. So we help people move their belongings abroad whenever they maybe move abroad to work or travel. So it started back in 2009 whenever I was at Edinburgh University, moving my stuff back and forward using low-cost airlines and getting charged an absolute fortune for sending 2 or 3 suitcases back at a time. So I thought there had to be a better solution. It was very easy to order stuff online back then, but yet shipping your luggage was an absolute nightmare with having to use couriers or simply just paying the excess baggage fees on the airlines. So I thought, we'll set up a route in the UK and Ireland, sending luggage back and forward for mainly students at the start and end of terms. And then it sort of snowballed from that. So we started adding more routes on and started opening up to sort of non-students and people who move abroad for work now is sort of one of our main areas of business. And now, we're operating in almost 160 plus countries, sending luggage around the world. America, Australia and Asia are some of our top markets at the minute.
So almost 15 years on, talk to us about the size and scale of the operations today.
Yeah, well, we're still relatively small. We're based in Belfast. We only have 22 staff and we have some staff in the Philippines as well that help us out with the Asian market, obviously with the different opening times. But we're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we're helping around 150,000 customers move their belongings around the world.
How have you been able to compete with the established players in the market?
Well, luggage shipping, is a relatively niche. There's lots of shipping companies that can help move your various commercial goods around the world. There's plenty of normal couriers, but what sets us apart is we specialize in personal effects, and sending personal effects is very different from commercial shipment, mostly due to the customs process it has to go through. So if you were to use a normal courier, you may just complete commercial paperwork and then have customs duties to pay at the other end if it goes outside the EU. So we sort of specialise in handling all the customs paperwork for our customers and ensure there's free entry declaration forms filled in for them. And these are all submitted electronically, so the customer doesn't have to worry about all of that. Using us versus sort of a generic commercial courier as such. We handle all that paperwork for them. And because of the bulk we buy volume in various carriers, it's obviously a lot cheaper using us than it would be going directly to a courier.
What was the biggest challenge that you faced when scaling up the business?
Well, there's been a number of challenges, especially in the last few years with Brexit and COVID kind of coming together at similar times. But scaling up is all about, getting the contracts for us in the countries that we want to operate. I mentioned we started with the UK and Ireland, and then we've got bases now in the US to be able to operate there and get the contracts there. So you have to commit to minimum volumes to be able to get good access to good prices. So basically the hard bit is making sure what you promise the carriers that you operate with in America or in Australia that you can meet those volumes, and ensuring that you have enough money to resource the marketing required to be able to get new customers in those regions. So yeah, it's taken time to do that little by little. We've done it country by country rather than trying to do everything at once. But yeah, we've grown sort of patiently in each area we want to grow into.
Paul, what complications did Brexit create for you?
One of our main routes was obviously between Europe and the UK, which includes Ireland. And before, basically, a lot of EU students would come to the UK to study and simply attach a label to their suitcase, and that was it, no problems. Whereas now there's a lot of paperwork they have to fill out. They have to prove visas. They have to do all this sort of stuff and provide the commercial invoices with their shipping to ensure no duties are getting charged. So we've noticed a significant drop in the EU students. One of our main shipments that we do is for students around the start and end of terms dropping because of an EU student now maybe goes to Spain or France or stays within the EU rather than coming to the UK. So that was the main issue. Now we've got all the paperwork sorted out because we're already operating internationally, so that didn't change too much. It's just it does put people off. So that was the main issue.
And what's the split of business between people that are relocating abroad to work or to study?
Yeah, so about 65 to 70% of our business is people relocating to work. So that would be, young professionals mainly getting jobs in, Australia or America. They might be accountants or teachers, and they want to work out there for a couple of years. So we're seeing a lot of young professionals doing that at the minute. And then the rest would be made up of, students studying abroad, and then obviously holiday makers or people who have holiday homes abroad would use us frequently if they have extra stuff to send out. If they're going out for a 2 or 3 week holiday.
And what's the market size for a service like this globally?
Well, there's a number of options available to people, but if you added them all up, it's probably around the £200 million mark in terms of all the couriers that are working in the luggage shipping market.
And what process do your customers need to follow in order for My Baggage to transfer their belongings overseas?
Well, all our process is done online, so this is sort of a self-serve website. So they just go onto mybaggage.com, select the country that they want to collect it in and the country they want it delivered in, put in their address information, pick a collection date that suits them. Once they've done all that, they can pay online and print out a label. So then you attach a label to each item they're sending, and then that's that all done. If they have customs, if they're sending outside the EU, this will all be done digitally. They just need to answer a set of questions, upload their passport, and we will submit that all electronically to whatever customs authority is required.
I've heard of people in the past saying that to use the airline that they're flying with is just cost prohibitive. But what type of savings can be achieved by using the services of My Baggage?
Yeah, excess baggage fees have gotten extremely high, which is obviously good for us because people come looking for an alternative, and I believe we provide a very cost-effective alternative to excess baggage fees. So most airlines, the first bag that you're sending will be pretty reasonable. It won't be too expensive, but to ensure the airlines have enough space and capacity for their passengers, the second or third bag can often be extremely expensive. So, for example, with Qatar or one of the big guys going to Australia, that route is very popular, and the excess baggage fees could be 20 to 30 pounds a kilogram. So you're talking maybe £400 or £500 for your extra bag each. So 2 extra bags would be €800 or €900, and then we would be able to do that for around £100 or €200 depending on what size item they're sending. So the savings are well into the hundreds of euros per item, depending on the weight of the suitcase. Once you go beyond the second or third suitcase, if you're moving abroad, if you're traveling light on a holiday and you're only adding 1 suitcase per person, the price is relatively similar to the airline. It's once you go over into the excess baggage charges and in the second and third suitcase, the savings really stack up. Plus, you've obviously got being able to travel light and trying to carry 3 suitcases for the airport if you're relocating to Australia at either end, in Dublin, or once you get to Melbourne or Perth or wherever you're going in Australia, it can be a stress trying to arrange transport and drag it all yourself to the airport.
And Paul, what are the most popular destinations that the company transports to?
At the minute, the US, Australia and France would be our top sort of routes, as well as, the UK and Ireland. Obviously, in between those 4 or 5 destinations would be where most of our business comes from. We also service over 160, destinations that are more far afield. But yeah, most of it will come from sort of those areas.
And do you receive much repeat business from your customers?
It all depends on the customer. So students that would use us and then work abroad, they might use us 3 or 4 times a year every time they come home, and they move out of their accommodation wherever they're studying. And then they might go on to live abroad. But once they start to get older, you notice the customer then might use you once or twice more after that. And then if they've settled down in another country, they might not need to move abroad again. So some of our customers might only use us once or twice, and some might use us more frequently than that. However, if they have settled, what we found, especially people in America and Australia, they would ship gifts home using us just because they know our service and we know it could be delivered within a few days for Christmas or for family birthdays, or just if they miss something from home. So we've noticed our service being more used for that as well. So it's not just sending personal facts, it's also anything that you might have forgotten at home or something that you missed from wherever you've come from.
With each country possibly requiring varying types of documentation, how laborious is this process?
Yeah, it is a lot of work if you haven't done it before, but that's where our customs process sort of comes into itself. We have done all that work and worked out what paperwork is required for each country and for each type of person. So a student requires a different set of paperwork than someone who's relocating for work. So on our website, once you've sort of completed your shipment, it will ask you a set of questions, why are you moving abroad? Is it to work? Is it to study? Based on the set of 5 questions, then it will populate all that paperwork for you so you can't get it wrong. But yeah, every country, most of the countries will have what's called a free entry declaration form. That's the first form that you would have to fill in, which is basically to ensure there's no duties charged on personal effects that are over 6 months. And then you've obviously got your pro forma or your commercial invoice. And then if it's a student, you might have to prove your student visa status. So we handle that for the customer, so they won't actually see that paperwork unless they want to and download it. But we will submit that all electronically to the courier customs authority for them. So it does save a lot. If you try to do it yourself, there's a bit of research required, and you could do it yourself, but you're going to save the money by going through us, and then obviously the stress of trying to work out what paperwork's required. And if you get it wrong, it could be declared commercial shipment, and then you have to pay duties on the value of the items that are inside your shipment.
And Paul, of course, My Baggage is one of the first points of contact for anyone that's relocating. As a result of that, have you identified any additional services that you could be providing, or indeed any strategic alliance opportunities that you could create with businesses that are located in those particular countries?
Yeah, we provide sort of moving guides to our customers that gives them an idea of, what they should be doing when moving abroad. And this is free advice. We don't charge for it, and we don't actually have any affiliates at the minute that, we make commissions off. Maybe we'll look into that in the future. But, we advise them, obviously, one of the first things they would do is look at flight options, look at how to move their belongings, and then sort of look at accommodation after that and where they could live, or how they could maybe get a temporary Airbnb or hotel for a few weeks before they can actually get a lease on an apartment or a house, when moving abroad, because they might not be able to view it, obviously, living in a different country. And then like getting banks set up and transferring money, if they have the money in maybe a euro account in Ireland, getting it sent across to Australia or America, and then getting phones obviously set up. So we have a guide that we provide them and advise customers of what they should be looking to do and thinking about. And the process of moving abroad, we would see customers researching at least 2-3 months ahead to get organised. So it is a long process before when they get a quote from us and before booking, there can be that lag for them to get everything organised. But at the minute, we have no sort of alliances or, make any commissions from any companies we recommend. We simply do that to help our customers out. Now, maybe in the future, that's an additional possible revenue stream. But at the minute, we're sort of focused on growing our own business and getting, obviously, as many routes available to our customers as possible.
What has worked from a marketing perspective?
Most of our marketing is still sort of digital. So that would be through Google and obviously Facebook ads. So literally people Googling either high intent searches such as luggage shipping or shipment to Australia or shipping abroad, stuff like that, as well as sort of the research phases, which would be people looking online for how do I move to Australia, how do I move to France, and getting them at the research phase as well. So that's sort of like the Google side of things. And then obviously on Facebook or Meta, it's sort of targeting them when they're in obviously the research phase of looking abroad and looking at maybe different countries that they can move to and serving them ads that way. So digital is still we've tried others, sort of out of house, and we've done a few TV ads and other stuff like that to target the UK and Irish market to make them aware that such a product exists, because not a lot of people are aware that this product exists. They think the two options are either take it on the plane with them and pay a huge price, or get a traditional moving company, which would put it in a container and you have to wait 3 months for it. But container shipping now is quite expensive. And maybe people might really move to Australia for years, so they don't really want to wait 3 months either end to get their belongings. So we're sort of educating the market on where we fit, and it's somewhere in between taking on the flight or getting a removals company. Now, we are quite lucky that, over 35% of our customers come from recommendations. Once someone uses it and has a good experience, they maybe tell their friend, or if they're hearing of someone else moving abroad, they might advise them, to check out My Baggage. So, yeah, we're lucky that we get a lot of recommendations.
And Paul, what are your future growth plans for the business?
Well, America is now our biggest market. In the last sort of 18 months, in terms of revenue-wise, it's overtaken the UK and Ireland now. So we're sort of focusing, but we're still quite small in America. So we're focusing very much on America and Australia. There are two sort of big countries that we're relatively small in, but yet we're still getting a good amount of revenue from, and there's a lot of people moving to and from there, expat-wise, for specifically for work. So our main aims is for the next 2-3 years is to grow our business as much as possible in the US and Australia. And that's mostly through marketing. We've got some really good contracts set up now and good margins, and hopefully we can grow the business through just pushing a bit more marketing in the places that people are when they're thinking about moving abroad.
And finally, when you look back at your own business journey, what advice would you share with any aspiring entrepreneurs that are listening to this morning's interview?
Sort of what Nike says, just do it. I think I've been in this 15 years. Every year I learn something new in which I do sooner. And I've learned a lot from just being in the business and doing what's required to grow the business, rather than like planning and thinking about it and not getting it off the ground. I think the best thing sort of I did was get it off the ground relatively early when I was still in university, and I learned a lot in those first 2 years when I was sort of just tinkering around and playing with the business. And that gave me a lot of learning to take into when I graduated and left university to actually grow the business a lot more, from what I learned in those first couple of years, just tinkering about and playing with the business and seeing what possibilities could be there. So, yeah, I would say just sort of get on with it, and you're better learning from doing than sort of planning as much as you can and never actually getting on with it.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Paul Stewart from My Baggage, and I'd like to wish Paul every success as the business continues to expand.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.